What's up everyone, and welcome back to a new Neapolitan pizza dough recipe where I'm showing you my 3.0 version of my 100% Biga. Now let's get started with that dough.
Start by adding the flour and the yeast into your mixer. I happen to be using active dry yeast. Then add in the water for the Biga, which happens to be at 45% hydration. And luckily, this Evo 6 Sun Mixer moves in reverse, specifically for Biga and pre-ferments. Now this dough you do want to mix until smooth, and this is what it should look like. The idea of this lower hydration Biga is to allow it to ferment for longer periods of time. So what we're going to do is roll it out until smooth, place it into an oiled container, and allow it to ferment at room temperature for only 5 hours.
So right now this Biga exploded only at 5 hours at room temperature. I'm going to add it to the fridge and let it go for a long and slow cold fermentation for 24 hours. So tomorrow we'll be making the final dough. I'll see you then.
So during this long and slow cold fermentation, this Biga developed all of its flavor. And right off the bat, you could see its beautiful cell structure. This crumb on the pizza is going to be fantastic. And guys, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment down below for what videos you want to see next, because I'm not giving up on making the best Neapolitan and pizza videos in the game. This is only the beginning. So at this point in the recipe, it's time to mix your final dough, and you're going to be using cold water that has been sitting in the fridge, preferably overnight. Now add in half the amount of water and all of the salt, because the salt helps build the gluten structure. I start my mixer out on medium speed for about 3 minutes, then I higher it and add in the water at a slow drizzle until my dough comes together into a smooth, beautiful mass. Now take your dough's final temperature. It should be around 75 degrees Fahrenheit, which for me is perfect. And let's just get this straight. You're working with a high quality, advanced pizza dough recipe. It might be sticky for the beginner level pizza makers, but for those of you who made 1 or 2 pies in their days, I'm sure that this recipe will be your friend. Believe it or not, this dough's final hydration is at 68.75%. Now this is 2% less than my usual dough recipes. However, what I will do is laminate this dough by stretching it out on an oiled surface and then folding it like a book to initially create a strong gluten structure. Now the following steps for this dough's fermentation are quite easy. Allow this to ferment in an oiled container for 30 minutes at room temperature. Come back and give this dough coil folds, where you're going to use oiled hands to pull, stretch, and fold on top of itself the dough on all 4 sides. And what you'll see me do here is grab the dough and round it out in my hands to keep that dough's surface nice and smooth. Now simply let this dough rest at room temperature for 30 minutes. Now before dividing and shaping your dough, grab your tools. I like to use this specific bench scraper, these pint-sized deli containers, and also the silicone brush to help oil these containers. Now this step is very important for dough making at home because your dough, highly hydrated, will stick to a non-oiled surface, so make sure you do this. Now this recipe should make 3 even 273 gram dough balls. And as you can see, I do not use flour when shaping my dough balls. Now this is for more advanced pizza makers. What I can recommend though is using a very small amount of flour only on the top side of the dough. And let me just hint at this part of dough making, the shaping of the dough, because it's actually crucial in creating a nice developed pizza dough ball that rises properly. If you shape it nice and tight and smooth on the top surface, you have created the perfect dough ball. But there's techniques to creating it even tighter, and I do not know how to explain. It's all in the field. Now before anything, rest these doughs on your countertop for 30 minutes and then pop them in the fridge. I let my dough ball ferment 72 hours long, so that is 3 days, and this creates a pizza that is super digestible. And I'm using my go-to shaping technique where I press out the crust and then I use my fingers to tuck under that crust, just turning the dough naturally, letting gravity stretch the dough, and then I'll place flour on what is to be the bottom side of the dough, and then warm the underside of the dough up with my knuckles and stretch it in midair. And don't forget to pop those clear air bubbles because they will burn. And with today's pizza, I've chose to do like a New York style sauce with garlic and oregano. Use 2 types of cheese, a low moisture mozzarella and a whole milk mozzarella, and then top it off with these cup and crisp Hormel pepperoni. I have my beautiful Totoven oven from pizzagoods.com cranked up to 960 degrees. And wow, did this pizza come out puffy crust, nice and tender baked. I'm impressed. Now this pizza dough recipe is quite impressive. Starting out with a lean, flavorful, and aromatic biga, and the next day adding in water and allowing this dough to ferment for 3 days. Let's just say the results speak for themselves. My inspiration for all of this, it all stems from Italy. I mean, sure, I'm using scissors to cut a pizza, but it's to keep that integrity of the crust intact. For me, it helps me monitor the fermentation, the biga structure. It makes me understand the dough more by looking to see what's inside the crust. I'm topping this off with my hot honey recipe to make this pie straight comfort food, and then finishing it with a little bit of grana padano cheese to create that salty sweet complexity. Now, if you're looking to make the most impressive Neapolitan pizza, this recipe is yours. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.